RSV, Elm City.
Turn up.
Choice FM.
Every time I step in the booth, I speak the truth. Y'all know what I'm bringing to you.
You're live on the air. And the truth with Terrance Ruth. North Carolina news and politics, culture, sports, and the latest from the Triangle and Eastern Carolina. The truth with Terrance Ruth.
Welcome to the truth with Terrance Ruth. Again, I have to come and report that my Wolfpack came up a little bit short, man. I'm still proud of them, a little bit short. My guest last week was Antoine Arnold, and he told me South Carolina women want to win, and I got to give him props. Coach Dawn deserves all the flowers that she's receiving right now for winning that championship. To go undefeated, to not lose a single game, almost 2 years. She hasn't lost a single game. So I got to give it to Dawn. I mean, it couldn't go into a better coach. But NC State showing up to have both the men and the women team in the Final Four, I'm excited. I'll take that any day, anytime. But also what happened this past weekend, I often hear these narratives of like, we need to, sort of like black business, the draw of black business, black culture. But man, we have been spoiled for the last few years because Dreamville is a business behemoth. And so I want to start the day off just with this rapper. One rapper has such an economic footprint on this state. So I want to run down some of the economic footprint from Dreamville. So Dreamville was just last weekend. Again, we don't have the numbers from this year, but I'm going to read last year's, okay? So you can see, so the economic boost, the festival in 2023 economic impact report revealed that a total economic impact of Dreamville Festival was $145.9 million. You heard me correctly. 2 days. 2 days, they pulled in a draw of $145.9 million. Now, this figure combines operations with visitors, residential spending. It's a whole equation. But also the job creation. Again, we're talking about a rapper. We're talking about black culture, black business, okay? 2-day event at Raleigh's Dorothy Dix Park provided the equivalent of over 1,300 full-time jobs. Now, mind you, there's companies, organizations, even the city has vacancies out the wazoo. This 2-day event is equivalent to 1,300 full-time jobs. Again, I just grappled with the weight of Dreamville and how we've been spoiled as a state to have such a rich event. I'm talking about rich in culture, rich in talent, rich in just diversity, rich in just operating in excellence. The next thing is the hotel industry. Now, most of y'all know post-COVID, the hotel industry has had some hiccups. But the economic boost was greatest in the areas of hotel revenue, accounting for $20.5 million. $20.5 million. Again, one rapper, okay, 2 days, all right? Then the food and beverage sector. The festive, to me, I think this is where it really makes a huge imprint. The food and beverage sector, we saw 18.7 million. Again, 2 days, one rapper. So we've been spoiled this last 3 or 4 years with Dreamville. I just thank J. Cole for bringing that brilliance here, allowing for us. And again, that was the last Dreamville to my knowledge. I think that was the encore for the last Dreamville. Now, the last thing is ground transportation. Now, for those of you who don't take public transportation, okay, I know there's a lot of you, all right? Public transportation is struggling at the moment across the country. The numbers are down. Ground transportation services benefited significantly with an impact of $9.8 million. That's taxis, ride shares, other related services. Again, one rapper, 2 days. And so I just appreciate J. Cole for bringing that space here, bringing that wonderful opportunity here. And for those of you who didn't get a chance to see it, I mean, there's videos, there's highlights, but, customer testimonies. But again, Dreamville, black business, black culture, it's a powerful tool, especially when somebody do it in excellence. All right, so I want to move to the top issues in the United States. Okay, so it's been a lot going on. In case you haven't been you haven't been shopping for groceries lately. So they said the rising prices for foods. All right, now I want to go through the top issues as they relate to voters. Early this year, when this show started, I said you need to be voting all year. Campaigns are rolling right now, okay? You got your state superintendent, you have your governor's race, but what I want you to focus on is your local races, your school board. I'm going to an event right after this for a Wake County school board member. Your school board, your county commissioners, your city council, your mayors. You need to focus locally. Who is representing you at the local level? Yes, we have some really national figures at our gubernatorial race, our governor's race. We have some national figures now for our state superintendent race. So they're going to get a lot of national media attention. I need you voters to not lose the fact that local elections impact you immediately, okay? If you're trying to make sure that bus get to you on time so you can get to work, that's local. If you want to make sure that the bus is picking up your kids on time for school, that's local. If you're looking at your property taxes and you want to make sure that you can afford to stay in your house after tax evaluations, that's local, okay? So again, don't lose count. But here are some of the top issues, all right? Here's our top 5 for the United States. Number 1 is inflation. Voters are shocked by inflation. All right, now, the rise in prices of goods and services are becoming very significant, but I want you to hear this. 77% of Republicans consider inflation a very big issue. 77% of Republicans. In case you've been asleep, our state is pretty much split in half. So we're talking about half our state. It's 77% of half our state think that inflation is a big deal. So if you ever went to go buy eggs lately, cheese lately, milk lately, you're going to see that cost hit your pocket. All right? The very next one is healthcare affordability. For some of y'all last year, y'all knew that this was a top issue last year. The cost of healthcare remains a pressing issue. Now, this is 73% of Democrats view this as a big issue. 73%. Again, we're split down the middle in our state. All right? That's why our governor's race is so intense. It's split down the middle. So 73% of half of our state think that healthcare is a big issue. Healthcare affordability is a big issue. The next one is gun violence. This issue is almost a top concern for Democrats. 81% of Democrats say that gun violence is a top issue. Okay, this is 2024. All right, so election in November, we're talking about 2024, gun violence is a top issue. 81%. 81. All right? Next one, climate change. While 64% of Democrats see climate change as a very big issue, listen to this. Only 14% of Republicans see it as a big issue. So that's one issue where we literally parted ways. Parted ways. 64% Democrats say climate change is significant. 14% of Republicans say it's not. All right? Now, next one. 70% of Republicans consider illegal immigration a very big issue compared to 25% of Democrats. Now, you know what's strange to me? If you go into certain communities, there are sort of faith ministries that are serving immigrant populations right now. In your community right now, I go to these fundraising, these events. I'm there. I see it. There are immigrants in your community right now. And most people don't even know, don't even care. But when it's politicized at a national level, people start to waver in how they feel about this population. But right now, believe it or not, there's immigrants in your community. They're not harming nobody. Nobody's in danger. Nobody's losing their jobs. But the moment it becomes politicized at a national level, then you start seeing different sort of extreme opinions on that issue. But again, I just want to give you a top 5 in the nation in terms of issues going on in our country. Now, I want to touch a little bit on mental health. I read a story today. This is a real story. Happened in L.A. A young black woman was in a car with her 2 kids, both under the age of 10. She went, this is leading into the eclipse. Remember, we just had the eclipse, okay? She went to her boyfriend's house. They had a dispute. She took his life, left with the 2 kids, threw the 2 kids in the middle of the highway. One of them passed away. And then she ran into a tree and is no longer with us. When they started to investigate and see what is the motivation for all of this sort of horrendous death and murder, they started to walk down a trail of mental health concerns. Some of it was around the eclipse. She thought the world was going to come to an end. Some of it was around warning people of the danger of what will happen when the eclipse occur. Mental health should be at the top of everybody's list. Left, right, black, brown, white, purple. Mental health should be at the top of everyone's list. And so I wanted to go through a list of things that's the cutting edge for mental health support. And for me, I think this issue is growing, okay? It's growing. So if you've had a faith stance that prevents you from taking mental health seriously, if you've had a shame issue that prevented you from talking and having this mental health conversation, if you have a generational issue where family members have not talked about their mental health concerns, this is the time to end all those trends. It is time to start centering mental health in your life. It is time to start engaging your young kids on mental health. We can't sit it to the side out of shame anymore. We can't sit it aside and say this is for somebody else. All the characters involved in that story where 3 people passed away are African American, they're black. All 3 that passed away were African Americans. Mental health cannot be put to the side. Mental health can't be something we talk about in secret or in a diary. Mental health got to be on the front line of what we talk about to our kids, to our family. Even go and revisit the stories. Go visit the stories that your parents have shared or have hidden so that you can see what patterns are you seeing in terms of your heritage, your story around mental health. My grandmother passed away last year. One of the stories she told us, she said, one of our family, one of my great ancestors had a mental health issue. At least that was the belief, because they wasn't using that term. So they believed that that was an element. And that it was an issue where she didn't live a long life. So that story, I hear different versions of that story, but I had one aunt say she believed it was mental health. There are some signs of mental health. Share those stories in their authentic state, okay? Don't butter them, don't pat them up. Tell them in their authentic state, all right? Now, when we get back, I want to talk about some creative, innovative strategies that are coming out, some technologies that are coming out to address mental health. So meet me on the other side of this commercial. Again, Terrance Ruth, The Truth. See you soon.
Step in the booth, I speak the truth. Y'all know what I'm bringing to you.
You're live on the air in The Truth with Terrance Ruth. North Carolina news and politics, culture, sports, and the latest from the Triangle and Eastern Carolina. The Truth with Terrance Ruth. NC Black Alliance's 18th annual NC Black Summit, April 25th and 26th at the Raleigh Convention Center. Attendees can interact with Black elected officials, public policy advocates, and strategic partners, igniting progress, demanding equality, and setting the stage for the pivotal 2024 election. Get tickets at ncblacksummit.org.
you.
You're live on the air in The Truth with Terrance Ruth. North Carolina news and politics, culture, sports, and the latest from the Triangle and Eastern Carolina. The Truth with Terrance Ruth.
Back to The Truth with Terrance Ruth. Hey, now listen, we are going to talk about some sort of new technology, some innovative ideas on addressing mental health, okay? But the very first one is we got to put just the elephant down in the room, and that's stigma. People are still afraid to say that I'm not mentally well or to get help and support while not being well. So one of the first things, forms of technology that they say they're going to roll out is telehealth. For those of you who don't know telehealth, that's where you can phone somebody, get help and support, and it's community-based mental health care. And this, they pilot tested this during COVID. So COVID has allowed for us to really try some new things with healthcare, and especially around rethinking mental health. And so it allows for you to have some level of privacy with telehealth. It allows for you to get access to support without walking into a clinic. And then also, you could be wherever you want to be and call in or log in to get some help and support. So telehealth is number one. Number two is data from social media. Now this one I thought was cool. They're going to evaluate the language used and try to predict if you are in a good mental health space or not. So they're trying to be preventative. Now, there's articles written on this, and so I would love for you to go and investigate it yourself. But they said they want to spot trends and prevent self-harm. So if you've been watching some of the trends on social media, people who take their lives, they'll post first. They'll say something online. They'll share a statement. So they're coming out with some software, some technology that allow for us to see trends, to see if somebody's inching towards some self-harm. And to me, I think that that's creative. And again, there's some privacy concerns. I know some of you there's already bells ringing in your head. But here we're talking about mental health. We're just talking about saving lives. So if the technology will help do that, then I think it's a strong tool to lean towards. The next one is psychedelics to assist with treatments and psychiatric disorders. And so again, you're talking here around just different treatments and conditions like PTSD and depression. Yeah, they're trying new treatments to try to address some of these issues. The next one, this one I thought was cool. This one is digital devices. Now, Christmas, I went and got this MetaQuest. And those of you who don't know MetaQuest, it's almost like a headset, almost like Apple's Vision. It's a headset you put on your face. And when you get in there, you literally enter another world. You enter the meta, as Facebook would like to call it. You enter meta. In there, you can do everything. Literally, you can go half court and watch a full basketball game. You can go to a concert. You can shop. But yes, you heard me correctly. You can go shop for clothes. You can go visit friends. If your family has the digital device, the VR device on at their location, no matter where they're at in the world, when they visit you, they drop into your home. You heard me correctly. Their whole avatar is standing next to you, and you are talking, okay? So I want you to understand that VR is like zooming forward, and that's only the form that's visible to the customer. Usually on the back end, they're light years ahead of what the customer is experiencing. So the VR is the next device. They said digital devices, wearables, sort of like that VR, wearables or your mobile apps, that's going to collect real-time data and enable researchers to study mental health from a comprehensive viewpoint. So imagine data is being collected in real time to see what led to or what may have been methods to prevent deep mental health signs or depression or disorders. Again, for some people, they're like, no, I don't want to put nothing on my head. I don't want to wear nothing. I barely want an app. Okay, I barely want an app. It's just there's some cool technology that's coming out to try to really advance that conversation. Yes, For those of you who are screaming privacy, 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 fear, 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 that is real. So I want to make sure I honor you. But for figuring out ways in which technology cannot just harm us, in which we often see with people being addicted to social media, addicted to images on social media and online, to where they see themselves as less valuable. That is real. On the other side, the technology on the other side, the flip side of that, is that what can we collect, what can we learn if you were wearing something in real time and it was collecting data based on who you are and what you're doing? Netflix has a documentary. This is going to blow your mind. Netflix has a documentary where when there's this framework, when you are no longer here on Earth, your family will have the option of taking every footprint of you online and creating a digital version of you that you can interact with in real time. Now, again, I'm telling you this because technology is like 100 years ahead of us, okay? It's like 100 years ahead of us, all right? So mental health, we have to be able to figure out what tools can we activate to help us, because technology is only going to suck us more into this space. And again, I want to give you the number. If you have questions or comments, please call 919-872-9210, 919-872-9210, or 252-937-7400, 252-937-7400. And again, we're talking about mental health technology. Now, this is advanced now. We're talking about innovation here. And so the VR, wearing glasses that is not actual eyeglasses, but it's collecting data on what you're looking at, how you're feeling, your body temperature, what you're searching online, everything to try to understand mental health trends. Again, that part might scare some people. I get it. All right. I get it. There's also digital tools for provider training and gap filling. Now, again, if you want to seek mental health support, especially in Black communities, where do you go? How can we increase the number of mental health professionals that you have access to? There are digital tools to help train mental health trainers, mental health facilitators, mental health coaches. And so they're now pulling out tools to try to fill that gap so you don't have to go searching for support and help. We want to normalize help, okay? We want to normalize help. So there's been some online tools to try to tackle that idea, that whole tool. Number one, online education. Again, some of this is happening now, but we normally don't associate it with mental health. But online education, all right? Mental health, we want good mental health practices. And so some of this is for the provider, and also some of this is for day-to-day. They have apps, mental health apps, that can teach you how to breathe, teach you how to talk to your kids, teach you how to talk to your spouse, teach you how to talk to yourself. Yes, okay? Teach you how to reflect, breathe, talk to yourself. And then this one, for those of you who know, you know, predictive analytics, okay? Predictive analytics is used in everything. It's used in baseball, basketball, transportation studies, air traffic studies, future policies, investment strategies. I can keep going, okay? I keep going. Predictive analytics is when they take large data sets and they run mock scenarios. And based on those mock scenarios, which one, based on those scenarios, has a high probability of occurring? What is the damage of it occurring? What is the benefit of taking an alternative choice? How do we predict the future through data so that we can make better decisions now? So the predictive analytics is trying to help us understand what do we need to do now to prevent the future mental health crisis. Okay, so predictive analytics, for those of you who don't know, Google that, predictive analytics. And now they're going to activate that towards mental health. Now, my father passed away in 2014. He was in the military for years. He lived in a rural setting, left the house at an early age, around 15, 16. So he pretty much grew up as a teenager. I don't know what mental health scenarios that he was experiencing. But we need to be able to help people who are trying to navigate life. They don't have time to think about mental health support. We need to figure out, how do we become preventative as a culture? How do we become preventative as a culture? There's people right now that's walking through that same life scenario that I just gave you about my father. Right now. We are in active battles right now around the world. So when you say someone's in the military, they're in the military. They're active zones right now that we are in. So what does that trauma produce in families? What did that trauma produce in communities of color? What does that trauma, how does that impact the kids of that military individual? Again, I'm a military child, okay? So I'm only telling you because I lived a life, okay? But again, predictive analytics, they're now activating that to really think through what we're going next. All right, when we get back, we're going to hop on over to what are the hidden costs to being a property manager. All right, I'll see you on the other side.
Every time I step in the booth, I speak the truth. Y'all know what I'm bringing to you.
You're live on the air, and the truth with Terrance Ruth. North Carolina news and politics, culture, sports, and the latest from the Triangle and Eastern Carolina. The truth with Terrance Ruth.
Calling all women, calling all current and future moms, childbirth professionals, child care and medical professionals. UNC Health presents an event you don't want to miss. Be a part of the advanced screening and panel discussion for the short film, Toxic, a deep dive into a Black woman's pregnancy. Join us Thursday, April 11th from 6 until 8 p.m. at John Chavis Community Center, Raleigh, for an opportunity to discuss Black women's maternal outcomes, care, and methods of self-care and advocacy. Dinner's free and so is admission. Thursday, April 11th at the John Chavis Community Center, 505 Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard, Raleigh. Email equityinclusion@unc.unc.edu for more information. Toxic, presented by UNC Health and the North Carolina Health Equity Collaborative. An event you don't want to miss. April 11th through 17th is Black Maternal Health Week across the country.
KURN News.
I'm Jamie Jackson. Black unemployment is on the rise as the overall economy continues to add jobs. In a mixed economic report, the latest data from the Department of Labor reveals that while the country's overall unemployment rate remains low at 3.8%, Black Americans are not sharing equally in the gains. The economy added 303,000 jobs in March, with the biggest increases coming in healthcare, government, and construction sectors. However, Black Americans were the only racial group to see an uptick in unemployment during this period. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the unemployment rate for Black Americans rose even as the rates for Asian and Hispanic Americans declined to 2.5% and 4.5% respectively. The unemployment rate for white Americans remained unchanged at 3.4%. For AURN News, I'm Jamie Jackson.
Right now at Macy's, it's time for a spring refresh. Shop our great shoe sale and save 30 to 40% off Tommy Hilfiger, Madden Girl, and more top names. And take 35 to 70% off during our diamond sale for a little sparkle that goes with everything. Plus, get our lowest prices of the season with 20 to 60% off furniture, mattresses, and more specials. Download the app for even more great deals at Macy's. Savings off sale and clearance prices. Exclusions apply.
What stories would you like to share with the community? Can you make a film about it in 48 hours? That will be the goal if you sign up for the 48-Hour Film Festival at the Imperial Center Theater, kicking off Friday, April 19th at 3 p.m. For a list of rules, visit imperialcenter.org and email robert.goodson@rockymountnc.gov to sign up. Celebrate the diverse stories made by community members within a 48-hour time frame. Participation is free and fun. Sunday, April 21st, the film's premiere at the Imperial Center Theater, 270 Gay Street, Rocky Mount.
Every time I step in the booth, I speak the truth. Y'all know what I'm bringing to you.
You're live on the air, and the truth with Terrance Ruth. North Carolina news and politics, culture, sports, and the latest from the Triangle and Eastern Carolina. The truth with Terrance Ruth.
All right, welcome back. Welcome back to the truth with Terrance Ruth. And again, We have a caller in from our last segment on mental health. So I want to make sure I get this call. Hello, you on the line?
Voice command. You can say things like "show recent calls" or change. Hello.
Hello, you on the line?
Hi, I'm sorry. This is Toshiba Rice, and of course, I could not let mental health pass. That you talked about it today.
Come on.
It's very important. The topic.
Come on. Now. This is Doctor. Is this Dr. Toshiba Rice? Now. This is your backyard.
Listen, trying to drive to an event, and I said, I know the amazing Dr. Terrance Ruth is not going to talk about mental health, and no, I'm not going to have to call in and chime in.
Yes, and this is your backyard. What are you seeing in the field around mental health? And again, you are right on the front line, and you are helping training communities, staff members, churches, governments on mental health. What are you seeing right now?
Well, what I'm seeing is what you literally were talking about going into a segment in reference to how do we, combat or support like people with mental health when we have a shortage of clinicians. So that's something that I speak about often. So one of the training is mental health first aid. We train, which mental health first aid is helping adults. I also train in teen mental health first aid, which is helping teens help their peers, and then youth mental health first aid, which is adults helping youth. And it's really about teaching people the signs and symptoms of someone in a mental health crisis or a substance use crisis, and actually how to help them, right? What to say that's helpful, what not to say that's helpful, and then how to make sure they get to the appropriate professional help. And so until we can kind of get more an increase in clinicians and work in that nexus place, we've got to train people on how to recognize when someone is hurting, how to recognize when people are literally hurting in silence, right? And so that's key right now, which is really training people in mental health first aid, and that's what I do across the country.
Now, how do you break through the stigma? The stigma seems to be the biggest barrier, both for somebody even wanting to enter the field as a facilitator, a coach, a trainer. How do you get through the stigma so that culturally this is something that we want to lean into rather than stay away from?
Oh, that's a perfect question. And so one of the things that I have to say is the verbiage that we might say or get in the norm of letting people know it's okay not to be okay. Like, it is literally, I tell people, that's especially good. In the faith community where I sit, I say, listen, it's okay to have a pill and a prayer.
That's good. That's good.
And when we start using language for people who are in leadership roles and positions that people look up to, and when we start letting people know that it is okay to have a mental health problem or a mental health challenge or even a mental health diagnosis, that there is help and that is common. Because 1 in 5 Americans live with a mental illness, right? And because that's a common place, we need to make sure that we destigmatize that by talking about it within our families and communities, letting people know it's okay if they recognize that they haven't been feeling well or acting their normal selves, that they can be a safe space. So I don't like to always say a safe place, but sometimes people need to be a safe space because depending on who you are, what role you play, you don't seem like a safe space for people to be able to have that conversation with. And so I just always like to try to be transparent, like you were. Yeah. Like you talked about, you couldn't imagine. Well, listen, I was married to someone with severe mental illness for 18 years. My children live with mental health disorders. However, that is why I shouted on the mountaintop that it is okay that there are brilliant people, successful people who are living well with a mental illness, who are living well with living with a diagnosis of depression because they put some tools in their toolbox so that when they don't feel so well, they know how to pull out of that.
That's good.
And post-pandemic, everybody, listen, I like to share this statistic, Dr. Ruth. Before the pandemic, 51.5 million Americans live with a mental illness.
Wow.
Now, that was in 2019. But in 2020, by July, the government declared it a crisis when 50 million people were unemployed.
Wow.
Which one was the pandemic before the pandemic?
Wow.
And we know what happened to mental health after the pandemic.
That's right.
So, I can talk about this subject all day long.
No, you are on the money. So I want to talk about the elephant in the room. Mm-hmm. Our journey in America, I'm talking about African Americans, is closely tied to the Christian faith. It's very difficult to rip those things apart, even though our country, by polling data, is becoming less and less Christian. So people are not self-reporting as being a Christian. That number is coming down. But the black community still have cultural norms that's rooted in the black church. So how do you navigate the faith world and the mental health world? Because our culture is so intertwined with that it seems like it's a necessary conversation to have, even if somebody don't ever touch a foot in the church.
Listen, you're talking truth today, right? You're speaking. You're definitely spot on truth today. So listen, let me put on my clergy hat, right? Let me put on my pastor hat, and let me say here, the Band-Aid is already ripped off. You know why? Because pastors are already living with this disorder. And so because pastors are already living with this disorder or living with these challenges, and they're seeing their clergy. So Anita Earls, I'm not Anita Earls, I'm sorry. Dr. Anita Phillips said this in a clergy event. She says for the first time, clergy and lay members are going through the same thing at the same time.
Wow.
And what that means is no longer is it a situation where we can sweep it on the rug and think that the way that people are behaving when we talk about faith communities, we want to label something as a demon or a spirit or something. Listen, if it can be medicated, it's not that. From a faith perspective, right? For those who believe in the extreme. I grew up Pentecostal apostolic, right? I grew up in the age of Ty Tribbett and I were in the same denomination, right? And so listen, what I know for a fact is that there are faith-filled people who are struggling with substance abuse, right? They're struggling with alcoholism. I know for a fact there are faith-filled people who are struggling when it comes to depression and other illnesses and mental health challenges, but they need a safe space to speak to. That's what I'm seeing in the organization of pastors that I support in the Raleigh Interdenominational Ministerial Alliance. We make it a priority to share with pastors how to receive support and then how to help their congregation to do the same, because it is not a bad word. It's not a bad four-letter word. It's just help and it's truth, and we have to start giving people help with facts.
Now you wear many hats, and one of those are one of those really is a school board member. You're a school board member of Wake County Public Schools, and you're now helping guide policy around young kids. And we are seeing numbers increase at that age as well. I know we're talking about adults at the moment, but the kids in schools, we're seeing that as well. And again, we need Dr. Rice, but just knowing the school board world and the public education, what are you seeing from kids at the moment, and what do you foresee as a way we should try to address what we're seeing in kids at the moment?
Well, listen, one thing I can tell you right now, and that's another great question, but one of the things that I can tell you right now that's happening even in Wake County schools, across the high schools across the state, the Governor Cooper released funds last year in reference to mental health, right, to help children, to help students and youth in crisis. And I am a part of one of the trainers that's a part of the UNC is navigating us that where we go out across the state and train high school staff and high school students in grades 10 through 12 in teen mental health first aid. So it's literally right here, tangible in our own state, right? We know right now that data tells us that the second cause of death between the ages of 11 and 17 right now is suicide. And so because we know these numbers, we know for a fact that we have to continue to educate staff. Teachers are overwhelmed who are having to be in special education services. One, because parents don't know how to even support their kids sometimes. Because they're overwhelmed with the mental health service that their children might need, and so they have to deal with it at home. And when they send them to school, then the teachers have to also support them. And everyone loves the children, and they want to support the children, but we have to be realistic. It can be a little overwhelming sometimes dealing with a special needs child. And it's okay that it's overwhelming. That's the first thing we have to let people understand. It's okay that it's overwhelming because it's a part of life. But what we do is to make sure that there are resources that surround parents, that surround students, so that everybody can get the help they need. Because I'm going to tell you, as someone who was a caregiver of a teen and a youth that had to be institutionalized, that is heavy. And we, as caregivers, parents as caregivers, need support around this. Then parents have to support teachers when students are in the school system, and how we can tag team with one another to make sure that these students are safe and that teachers are safe and that families can be safe. But the most important thing, Dr. Ruth, is that everybody needs to have a conversation. Start talking about stuff around mental health and start normalizing. Stop saying when people say, how you doing today? Stop saying I'm okay. If you're not okay, say you're not okay.
That's good. That's good.
Say you're not okay. One of the things that I'm Well does, which is the firm that I run, is we actually have a day on Wednesdays. We call it Well Check Wednesday. And it's a simple thing that we do to help normalize mental health, right?
Yeah.
And to help take away the stigma. It's a simple thing everybody can do. Check on one person once weekly. That's it. One person once weekly, and a simple message that says, how is your emotional wellness today? And it's okay to say how you really feel. Ask them a question and then confirm that it's okay for them to be honest about it. But it's important to be trained in mental health first aid so that you know how to appropriately respond when they come out with honesty. And I promise you, as someone that's trained and people that know you're trained, they be honest.
Yeah, and
I have to utilize my skill sets and training to give them appropriate professional help and to just listen.
I want to give you a chance to just share your either social media or email, because to be honest with you, some people might have a hard time finding mental health first aid facilitators, trainers, coaches that look like them. And so if you could share just your contact information, and that would be helpful.
Absolutely. You can always find me at ToshibaRice.com. But most importantly, if we're looking at websites or social media, please join I'm Well Network. So that's on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, I'm Well Network. And that's IMWELLNETWORK. But I can always be found on Toshiba Rice on all social media platforms and everywhere. But it's very important, guys. I really appreciate this opportunity to share about something I love so much. I couldn't resist.
Not a problem. Again, we will have you live on the show, so we got to figure out a way to get you on here. But thank you again for calling in, Toshiba.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ruth. Have an amazing day.
All right, you too.
Bye-bye.
All right, and again, this conversation is serious, everyone. Part of the stresses of life is having to bear the burden of the cost of living. 69% of renter households in North Carolina are extremely low income level. 69% in North Carolina, renter households are extremely low income level. Okay, 69%. That's over 350,000 people. That means the house can be a blessing and it can be a weight. And so I want to talk about the real cost, because sometimes when we're not in the same economic position as someone else, we make assumptions about their wealth. We make assumptions about what they earn, their revenue, their cost, and then we start to stereotype their purchases, their decisions, because we assume that we know what they're bringing in. Much of what we do in life is performance-based, okay? Much of what we do. So I wanted to talk about the hidden costs of people who own properties. Because most of the time we think, man, this is a landlord. You think landlord has fun. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes they don't have the money. Sometimes that stressor itself is the cost. So let's go through some things that you wouldn't know that landlords, property owners, property managers have to consider. And number one, taxes and fees. That property has taxes, taxes and fees. So when taxes go up, their cost to pay for the house, if somebody's in there or not, they have to cover that cost. If somebody's late on their rent or not, they have to cover that cost. The very next one is insurance. Premiums for this type of insurance have gone up 25%. 25% that the landlord, the property owner, has to calculate into their monthly fee. The very next one is cleaning costs. No one's going to rent your property if the grass is not cut and it's dirty. So the cleaning costs. The costs to clean your properties have gone up. The costs to cut grass have gone up. The very next one is constant maintenance. If something goes down, if a tenant breaks something, if there's need to be repairs, if something just randomly goes wrong, that cost is transferred over to the landlord, to the property owner. Replacing and repairing. Again, when you got to replace a furnace, we have to replace a floor, we have to replace a roof, a ceiling. Again, this landowner, this property owners probably have their own home that they have to cover. And then they have this. I'm not talking about big corporations. I'm talking about people who have investment properties. That's the person I'm talking about right now. The person that have investment properties that look like they're doing just fine, they may not be. They may be cost burden. Now, the very next one, legal expenses. For what y'all don't know, not every renter is amazing. Okay, some renters, you got to go to court. You got to go to court to get your funds back. You got to have an attorney that you need to pay. There's legal fees. Again, don't make assumptions around those who have investment properties. They may have an investment. That doesn't mean they have a return. So just remember, again, these are hidden costs that you will not see. The very next one, pre-renting fees. Before they rent it out, they have to advertise. They have to do background checks on people. They have to do credit reports. All of this is at the cost of those who are managing the property, the person who has an investment property. Even if you pay someone else to do it, you're paying someone else to do it. So again, when you watch somebody who has investment properties and they're trying to manage 1 or 2 or 3 investment properties, unless they are, a huge corporation, they are handling significant costs. And guess what, everyone? Taxes are going up. Property values are going up. Every little thing that it takes to build, fix, repair housing is going up. So just because somebody has investment properties doesn't mean that they are receiving returns. Okay, and if the returns are coming, they're very minimal. And hopefully they're managing that well in case of an emergency. So now the very next one is association fees. HOA. I don't know if y'all live in a community HOA, but you pay. You pay. You pay. They have rules. They have regulations. You pay. Again, I'm just trying to humanize that person who made a couple of coins and wanted to put it into an investment property. Man, they're trying to get by just like you. Remember, 69% of people in North Carolina are living in extremely low income. 69%. All right, so vacancy. Let's say they can't get somebody to fill that spot. This is not Airbnb. This is. I'm talking about you got an investment property and it's sitting there. Guess who has to pay that that rent every month. They have to pay it. They got a market they got to get out. Again, I'm just trying to get you to humanize that person. They may not be bringing in the amount of money you think they are. Just see them as a human being trying to run a business, a small business. Okay? The very last one, it's just unexpected. I mean, just unexpected. Things just happen just randomly. My brother was in an investment property of someone else's, and it was a hailstorm. One of the hail broke a part of the roof. They had to fix the roof. Again, all I wanted to do in this little process is tell you that there's hidden fees that chip away at whatever you think that person is making. Everybody's just trying to hustle, man. They're just trying to make it. The cost is going up. There's a lot of housing insecurity, food insecurity, and guess what? We're in a time where it may not look like it is. That person may not look like they're having house insecurity. That person may not look like they're having food insecurity. Don't judge people because they have an extra home. That means they have an extra burden. So just humanize the person that's just trying to hustle. And I just wanted to highlight that human, that individual that's trying to have an investment property. A friend of mine, he does this work all the time. He has more than one. I think he has over 10. But even with that, the costs increase. And so again, man, just humanize each other. This is a very difficult time. Inflation is there. Very difficult to get jobs. The housing costs, taxes are going up. Just humanize each other, man. Don't assume what somebody have in their wallet. All right? So again, I want to thank Toshiba for hopping on, for giving us insight into mental health. There are some technologies coming out to try to help address and curb some of these issues. But man, you know I'm always going to come with the truth. And again, the truth is humanize each other. You might not be in that person's shoes, but man, they still human. So I can't wait to see you next week. We have a lot of things happening and so much going on. I thank you for joining me on this episode, and I'll see you next week with Terrance Ruth. Again, I'm only going to give you the truth. See you next week.
Every time I step in the booth, I speak the truth. Y'all know what I'm bringing to you.
You're live on the air, and the truth with Terrance Ruth. North Carolina news and politics, culture, sports, and the latest from the Triangle and Eastern Carolina. The truth with Terrance Ruth.